He's on Rolling Stone's list of top 100 guitarists of all time. He's responsible for co-writing one of the greatest and most well-known instrumentals ever. In 1992, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and in 2008, into the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum with Booker T and the MGs. And I'm not done yet. And in 2019, he was inducted into the Memphis Music Hall of Fame alongside the Queen herself, Tina Turner. From the White House to the movies, it is a total honor to have producer, songwriter, and of course, guitarist. He's part of so many songs, guys. It's unbelievable. The legendary Steve Cropper.
Hey, Kiki, how you doing?
Oh, Steve, my goodness. Like, I have been working for a long time on this. You have done so much stuff.
Well, it's behind me now.
Well, no, I think you're still working though,
Yeah, you got to do the hits, I guess. I always felt like you did. So I don't try to shove new stuff down people's throats, but if they like it, they like it.
Well, we like you.
So good.
We totally like your new stuff, and a lot of people are liking it because it's number one, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, Steve, it's been a crazy, crazy year and a half. We've got venues opening back up. You've been very busy. Now, you live in Nashville. It's the music mecca. Do you plan to head out on the road with your new music, or are you going to just stick around and say, what?
If they demand it, I will, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm not, like I say, I don't force feed anybody, but if they want it, they're going to get it.
Good. I think we want it. I mean, it's number one,
Yeah. So far, so good.
Now, Steve, you were in the Marquees, the Stax record house band. You were a teenager, a little guy, and you had the instrumental hit Last Night. And it's one of those songs, you hear it and you go, oh my gosh, that's been in so many things. You're a teenager. Your song ripped its way to the top of the charts, Steve. What is it like being a teenager and having your song,
The feeling was more exciting then, I guess it is now. Now you just kind of silly. Let's take it for granted. I don't mean that really, but everything, they asked me a lot of times, what did you know it was a hit? No, we just thought it was good. We knew it was danceable. So people have asked me through the years, why do you think Last Night was so big? I don't know. I guess we knew what we were doing, but maybe not. And I remembered back playing it for my mom for the first time when I got some records, and she started doing the twist. I said, well, I guess it was the first twist instrumental. That was a big dance in those days.
Wow. That is great. So you're a teenager, and it didn't hit you that way.
No.
Wow. Jeez.
You just move on to the next project. I mean, the next step was 61, and then in 62 we had Green Onions with Booker T and the MGs. So for, Jerry Lee, Smoochie Smith, a piano player at the time, came up with that riff. And Packy Axon and Charles Axon and myself came up with the horn lines, and I came up with the drum intro, and he came up with that intro that's a whole note is all it is on the top, on the one, and so it made it.
So now Booker T was only 17 and you were 20. You both started, playing around together. A couple of young guys. What do you think was that main ingredient, Steve, that made it just all happen?
I don't know. And I know that Louis Steinberg played bass on the Green Onions, and he started playing that bass line, which now that I look back, it was written back in the very early 40s. And, a lot of blues artists have used that bass line. A lot of blues bass players use that bass line. And dom, dom, da, dom, dom. It's a little bit different than this. It's more than three notes. You play that first note twice, don, don, da, don, don, which is pretty cool. And the thing about Green Onions, which makes it a little bit unique, it's actually an F minor, but you're playing in F major. So my solo and all is in F major. Booker, I think, is playing in F minor, which the two work. And I don't think you really hear the minor third musically, so for all those music guys out there that want to know. It still is the number one instrumental everywhere. It's weird to me that it still sounds good today. It does. I mean, I know musically, maybe note-wise, it's not as good as it could be, but it still grooves. It still has a groove to it. You still want to dance to it.
Absolutely.
And this new record I've got out is all about dance music.
Yep.
Even the ballad, even the slower tempo ones. I don't have any real ballads on the record, but it does make you want to get up and dance a little bit.
Yes, it does.
And that's what it's all about. I think everybody now with the pandemic and the lockdowns and all that want to get out and party a little bit and dance a little bit and all that. So it's been good timing for us, I guess.
Absolutely. Now, have you been working on that new record all through the pandemic, or was this something newer?
Well, John Tibbin did. He called me earlier, way back when, and a lot of these songs were written just off the top of my head of grooves that I've been hanging around with for a long time. And he called me and he said, you know those songs we've been writing? Do you mind if I finish some of them up? I said, no. And I didn't know he was going to put all these great drummers and all on it. And it turned out real good. So he sent it to me, and he said, what about putting this out? And I said, no, not going to happen. I said, even if you thought about it, you need a singer. He says, I got one. I said, you better play me something he's done. And so he played me Roger's stuff, and I said, where's that guy been all my life? I'd never heard of him before.
Wow.
And he's had a lot of records out, Roger Rio.
Wow.
So he's had his own variety of stuff out there for a long time. And I guess we did cross paths because I was in R&B and he was in more and pop and rock. So there you go.
Yep, and they all go together, right?
They do now. They would have then too, I think.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, just the sounds. Oh, my goodness. Now, Jim Stewart, who was the founder of Stax Records, along with his sister, Estelle, they believed in you, Steve. What was that moment like when he let you know you, Steve, were going to be the guy who put together who we know is Booker T and the MGs, then let you know, hey, you're also going to be the guy to bring us all the talent, all the new talent?
I don't know. I didn't look at it that way in those days. I was just doing my job. So they said, man, you've become a great guitar player. I said, wrong. I'm still learning. I was learning on the job. I didn't have time to take lessons and sit down at home and try to learn how to play guitar. I didn't have time. I had too many jobs to do, too many hats to fill.
Jeez. I mean, a humble guy. You're a super humble guy.
Oh, I try to be sometimes. And, you know, I think if you glorify what you do, you're going to lose it. I've always felt that way. So it's got me this far thinking that way. So I don't know. Just go on to the next project. And we really did think life was over pretty much when the Blues Brothers came around. It was so big with the movie and everything. And we've been touring with that band. The present band, all the members now have been together about 19 years.
Jeez.
And we've been out on the road for 50 years doing that stuff. So.
That's insane.
And I know that the present band, you know, Belushi died. We just thought it was over with, like Otis dying and everybody else, you know, it just thought it was over with. And it wasn't. And so Donna Dixon secretly put the band back together, I guess, for a surprise birthday party for Dan Aykroyd.
Oh.
And so coming off stage, we had a blast doing it. And Louis looks at me, Lou Marini. Lou Marini, as everybody knows him, and I call him the dancing dishwasher from the movie. He said, man, that was a lot of fun. We got to keep this going. So we got on the phone and started calling people and get us some gigs. And the only gigs we could get was it was a tour through Italy, I think, the first time. And we left 3 days after I got married to my present wife.
Aww.
And
gosh,
she went on the road with us. I think we did about a month over there or something. She tells a different story about how miserable she was.
I'm sure she does.
One time I said, how many books did you read while we were playing? Because she sat on that bus, and, you know, I'd try to get some sleep for the night before, and she'd be reading a book. I'd go to sleep if she was reading a book, and I'd wake up, she's still reading a book. So I said, how many books did you read? She doesn't remember, but she remembers that tour.
Well, hey, she literally is an angel for going with you.
Yeah, I do. I thank her every day of my life. She's great. So this June the 25th will be 32 years we've been married.
Wow. That's so
a long time.
That's one I know. Like, I'm almost there too. So yep, I get it. And it's a lot of hard work and a lot of like pushing things aside.
Well, you know, you reach a point in your life, you just want to stay alive and do what you can do to stay alive.
I hear you.
And, you know, I don't know if this is the last album, how many more I will do. I don't know if I'm still around, I'll do more albums.
Yeah.
But this has been a good one. It's been a fun one, and it's different because we made this. When I say we made it, John and I talked on the phone about it. He has a studio in his house, so he had access to all his tracks and all. And he did call me several times, can I finish them up? I want to send this song to so-and-so, see if they'll write some lyrics. So I think the only song we got on there is Paul Rogers wrote lyrics to one.
Wow.
And She's So Fine, I think.
Dang.
And it's just a great lyric. And that's probably the only one in this album that we used where somebody else wrote the lyrics and the idea. And I think it's great what he did. He's a great singer. He would have sung it himself had he could have. But he was too busy doing something other stuff, already obligated. He couldn't do it. So I'm kind of glad in a way that Roger sang on everything. So that's him singing.
Jeez,
a lot of people think it's me, but it's not me. It's Roger C. Real.
Wow.
Or I call him Real. It's Roger C. Real.
That's pretty awesome. Now,
Thank you.
Going back to your days with Wilson Pickett and the earlier days of Stax Records, you co-wrote the song In the Midnight Hour with him, and it was nominated for a Grammy in 1965. The year it came out, it was nominated for a Grammy. Then again in 1987. Now, Wilson, he was a gospel singer, but the song, it had a little bit of friskiness in it. But you were not about the friskiness, Steve. You were all about keeping it clean.
So I remember that Jerry Wexler came down, and we picked him up at the airport, the two of them. And I remember him being in the studio dancing around, and everybody got a laugh out of it. But I think the jerk was the big dance at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And he was really wanting the action on that 2/4 beat. And he'd just pull his arms down. One, down, okay. So they sent the tape back, or he took the tapes back, and they after listening to it, they flew Al Jackson, our drummer, up there. And he went up. He was up there for a few days, and they had an 8-track at the time. And of course, the record was cut on mono, and they enhanced that backbeat. And so it was so good that Al Jackson and I, or at least I made a point of coming down with the guitar when the left hand came down on the drum. And they said, "How'd you play so tight with no headphones?" And I said, "Well, it was real simple. I just watched his left hand."
Oh my God!
So I came down when he came down, and he did reinforce that the backbeat on In the Midnight Hour, which I think helped it. You can't tell it in the mix. I mean, you don't know that there's an overdub, and there's no flams or anything. And Al is that good of a drummer, so he just played to himself, and that's all he did. I don't know how many takes he took. Probably one.
Yeah, right.
If I know Al Jackson, probably one take. The only other guy I know like that is a guy named Jim Keltner from L.A., and I played with him many times. He can listen to a song, and if you want to redo the drums, he's a guy to call. He'll listen to it one time and then go out and do it. And that's it. One take. You got it. He knows that song. He just remembers it somehow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's a great talent to have, too. It's one thing to be a drummer, but it's another thing to make records and listen to what everybody else is doing and compliment what everybody else is doing.
And you were always the guy to talk about your bandmates as well and how talented they were.
Well, as people they were, as musicians, a little bit different. Musicians are more like putty. You just make something, you mold something out of them.
Yeah.
Same thing with artists, singers, and musicians, same thing. As people, a little more difficult.
Well, it's an art, right? I mean, everybody, you're invested in your thing.
And so I was asked one time, you didn't today, but I was asked one time, what makes a good producer? And I know my formula is very simple. When I hear a song in the raw, whether it's a guy with a guitar, a girl with a guitar, or just on a piano or something, I hear it completed. I hear it with everything in there, and then I work towards that end. And I've always done that. I don't just go with the moment and what I hear and react to I always play to what I hear. And I like to hear something, if I'm on an overdub on it, sometimes I say I should have been on the original session, but that's because to get the groove going.
Right.
And on this record, I got to do that because we just wrote these songs as a groove, and so I'm playing more than one guitar on this record. The lead guitar was the last thing that we put on there before we mixed it. So I heard a lot of this stuff for the very first time.
Wow.
And not, when I say the first time, not the song itself, but the final end of it. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to sit at home and work something out. I just wanted to go in the studio and play. Have fun.
Right. Now, Steve, when you were the A&R guy for Stax, anyone who wanted to be in the music industry was going to try and get you to listen to them.
Right.
So was there anything crazy that anyone did to get you to listen to them?
Well, probably Otis Redding did a little bit. And,
really?
So he went to Al Jackson instead of me. And so Al told him, and he was the singer in Johnny Jenkins and the Pine Topper Band. And they had a #1 hit, but without Otis, of course. He was the lead singer in the band. And he went to Al Jackson and said, I want you guys to hear me sing. So Al came to me during the session. Said, you know this guy that was driving the carpet for Johnny? I said, yeah. He said, he wants you to hear him sing. And I already told him, you only hold auditions on Saturday, and you probably won't get a chance to hear him today because I don't know what day it was. It was a Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever it was. And so that's what happened. And at the end of the date, we weren't happy with what we got, or at least Jim Stewart wasn't, so he sent everybody home early. And Al comes to me. We're listening to playbacks of the day, and Al came to me and said, "You know that guy I told you about in the middle of the session?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Could you just take 5 seconds out of your life and listen to this guy and get him off my back?" Basically, I said, "Yeah." Tell him to come down to the piano. So he went and got him, and I went down to the piano. And so he comes down, and I said, "Play something." And he said, "I don't play piano. I play a little guitar." He calls it guitar. "I don't play piano." He said, "Can you give me some of the church chords?" And I go, I knew what he meant. Church chords meant 6/8 triplets. So I played some. He said, "That's it, these arms." And I said, "Stop it." He said, "What's the matter? You don't like my song?" And I said, "I love it. I just want Jim Stewart to hear it because this is a true story." The hair on my arm stood up when we opened his mouth and he started singing. I went, "Oh my God, I've never heard a voice like that before."
Wow.
And so I came and grabbed Jim Stewart. I knew if Jim said, "Go away, Steve," I was going to get fired. But I took that chance because this guy was so good. I finally talked Jim into coming down and listening to him. He went, "We got to get this on tape." He said, "Call the band back in." And so Donald Duck Dunn reminded me, we were over in Tokyo 2 days before he died. He said, I was talking about who played on These Arms Are Mine. And he said, "You don't remember coming out of the studio on the sidewalk?" He said, "I was putting my bass in the trunk and you said, 'Get your bass back out. We got to put a song down real quick.'" And I forgot. I thought Louis played on it, Louis Steinberg.
Wow.
But Duck said he played on it. So that's good.
Now, Otis was a dear friend of yours, and he's also considered to be one of the greatest singers of all time. So you had a good eye, obviously. And,
good ear.
I mean, well, both ear and eye.
Well, I did a record one time on the K Brothers called "In One Eye and Out the Other."
Oh, geez. Well, that's a coinky-dink.
Yeah.
Now, not only did you and Otis co-write the song, the very popular song, "Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay," but Otis wrote "Respect," and you produced it. Now, Otis performed it at the Monterey Pop Festival in 1967, the same year that Aretha Franklin released her version of the song "Respect." And Otis said at that festival, "This is the song that a girl took away from me." Now, how did that work at that time?
Well, his big number in Europe, and we'd already toured Europe a little bit, and he did something that nobody that I know of had ever done. The same band that played on their record played on their tour.
Oh.
And so when we got back, we were so far behind in producing and playing sessions. And he wanted to take us on the road, and we said, "We can't do it." He said, "You got to do it." And he was willing to, give us everything, and that didn't mean anything. So we suggested the Bar-Kays. Not very happy about it now, but, And he knew when he left that his plane was underpowered. And they told him that when he did Nashville and I think Cincinnati, and then on to, he was going over to Wisconsin. Monroe, the third gig anyway, before he died. He never performed that night, so he went down to the lake. But anyway, they knew that the plane wasn't under full power. So he put James Alexander, the bass player, we call him Nuck. His nickname is Nuck for Knucklehead. But it's James Alexander, and he put him and Zelma on a commercial flight with some of the gear and all that to lighten the plane. Well, it wasn't enough, I guess. And I know how it went down because I talked to one of the guys that survived the plane crash, and he said he remembered he was asleep, and he woke up, everything was going in circles, just spiraling. That's all he remembers. The next thing he said, the next thing I remember is being pulled out of the water. And he said, I could hear some of the other band members screaming, but it was so fogged up, nobody could see where they were. So the fishermen, they just happened to go down right next to where two guys were fishing. They went out early in the fog and was fishing. And they heard the plane go down, so they just reached down and grabbed the first person they saw and put him in the boat and saved his life.
Wow. So was he the only?
That Cessna that Otis had didn't have the buckling apparatus on it to knock the ice off, and so they missed the runway because it was so fogged in. And the tower told them to circle around. When they did, they flew out over this lake, and that's the one they went down in.
But they knew this before they went out, that it possibly was a bad thing.
Well, nobody knew that they were going to run into fog, but the northern part of the United States got hit real heavy that week. And so we were up playing the gig, and so we're sitting on a runway for a couple of hours one time that same morning trying to get out. And we said, if we get a hold of Dick, Otis's pilot, he'd get us out of here. Well, maybe not. I don't know. I laugh about it now, but it's been a long time ago. And I love when you said we were friends. We were. It's too bad we didn't have the ability to have cameras like we do today.
Yeah.
Because there are no pictures of Otis and I. We were real good friends. And we hung out in the street together and stuff like that. And I hung out with him in New York one time for about 4 or 5 days and had a blast with him. And he was just one of the kindest people you would ever want to meet.
Yeah.
And I thought he was my older brother. Then I read the obituary that we were the same age. And I'm going, no way.
26 years old. I mean,
yeah.
it's crazy.
It's crazy. We were both 26. So he'd be my age right now. And his birthday is in September. Mine's in October. So.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
Wow. Well, you know, how about Sun Records? So you had Stax Records, you had Sun Records. Now, Sun Records, the home of Elvis, Ike Turner, Roy Orbison. Stax is the home of you guys, Booker T and the MGs, and Sam and Dave,
right.
and so many more. Was there a rivalry between the two record companies?
None whatsoever. But Sam Phillips was Jim Stewart admired Sam Phillips. And so much so that the story I have that Jim called Sam one day and he said, you know, I got to copyright some of these songs. I need a writer's contract. So he used one of Sam's writer's contracts and copied it, and we used that forever. So that's pretty funny. And Sam was a great guy. There was no rivalry. And, you know, I went over there and played. Some of the first sessions I played was at Sun. Mm-hmm. And Scotty Moore, who wanted to be an engineer, Elvis's guitar player, wanted to be an engineer so bad he had me come over and double some of the bass line parts on the baritone guitar. Because what was happening recording-wise, the Fender had come in and guys were playing it like a guitar with a pick, and he wanted that sound. And so I was copying the upright bass parts because that was in the days of recording when everybody used an upright bass.
Wow.
And they couldn't slap it and hit it like Bill Black could, so they just played it, you know, like you play an orchestra bass, upright bass.
So now, Elvis, did you get to do anything with Elvis?
I got to meet him, but I never did play with him. No, Doug did one time. He came in to Stax, I think, at midnight. I already left Stax. Probably was the reason. And I don't know. And so George Klein, who was one of Elvis's best friends, a DJ in Memphis, and he said, you know, I talked to Elvis. He wants you to write a song for him.
Oh, my gosh.
That was way before Doc of the Bay. And now I always thought that I didn't have anything good enough and couldn't come up with anything good enough.
Oh,
what a dumb butt I was.
I know. Do you really go, what was I thinking? I mean, everything you did, though, Steve. Right.
Well, I wasn't thinking.
But everything you had done was so good.
I wanted to make sure that if I wrote something for Elvis, it was real, real good.
Yeah. Well, gee, oh my gosh. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Whew, that's like powerful stuff
good
right
that
there.
I didn't, because that would have ended my career had I written something that was real good that was famous for him, and it would have probably ended my career.
Well, yeah, you've had a good career. I mean, and because then
I've been very lucky, very lucky. The only thing I look back on at all, I don't really look back. I feel so removed from Booker T and the MGs. I left Stax in 1970. That was quite a few years ago. But I always look back sort of as the Blues Brothers. John Belushi was a great guy. Dan Aykroyd's still around. He's a great guy. And we had more fun making that movie. We had more fun making the second one, believe it or not.
Really?
But, you know, along came a little movie called Titanic and killed everybody. Killed 6 Hollywood productions. We were one of them.
Oh, my God. Well, John Belushi, I mean, we all loved John Belushi. I mean, the guy was a comedic genius. His impersonation of Joe Cocker was ridiculous. And I read that he liked to just walk into strangers' homes and make himself comfortable.
He could do it. I mean, everybody loved John Belushi. That was pretty cool. So they want me to say something nice about him. I try and I think about something nice. And so the only thing I can say is the times we hung out, he never refused an autograph to anybody. If it was one person, 2 people, or 25 people, he would stay there until everybody got their autograph.
Nice.
And they would jump out of cars, running into traffic, do whatever to get to see John Belushi, to just touch him, just to be with him. And he was the most giving guy I think I've ever met.
Wow. Did you ever get to...
I heard stories about Elvis. You know, Elvis had big stories about giving away cars and all that. Well, Belushi did the same thing. And he had more than he needed, and he just give everything away. And so Duck and I one time were sitting in Bernie Brillstein's office, which is, he was the manager at the time for John. He said, I spend more time trying to follow up with John's promises the night before than I do managing John.
Oh, my God. See, but that's something we don't hear about John, you know?
No. He left, and so did his good heart left.
Oh.
He was the greatest.
Did you get
I will tell you that.
Did you get to hang with him personally?
Oh, yeah. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
I went to dinner with him several times, and every time he came to L.A., he would always call me and come to the house. Every time, except the week that he died. And so another comedian friend of his called me, Tito, and he said, have you talked to John this week? And I said, no. And he said, I didn't even know he was in. He said, he came in Friday. This was a Wednesday. I said, what? And he died on a Friday. He came in the Friday before and died on that next coming Friday. Whoa. 7 days later.
Wow. That is horrific. I remember when John Belushi died, and the world was just shut down. I mean, shut down.
Ugh.
I mean, you had you had a personal connection with him. Now, did Paul Schaefer, is he the one who got you into the Blues Brothers?
No.
Okay.
I would credit that to the trombone player Tom Bones Malone.
All right.
And the reason was very simple. We had done 2 tours and 2 albums with Levon Helm, the drummer, when he left the band, and everybody was going to make a solo record for a while. So we did 2 world tours with Levon. And he used the Saturday Night Live horns during our hiatus. And so when John was asked to open for Steve Martin at the Universal Amphitheater during a hiatus, John goes to Tom Bones Malone, who was the band director then, and said, should we take the whole Saturday Night Live band? He said, no, you better get Dunn and Cropper. They're old road dogs. I don't know where he got that from.
They're old road dogs.
Old road dogs.
That's great,
yeah,
right?
I guess we're old dogs, all right.
Oh, my God.
So anyway, that's how we got in the band. And he called me, and he says, first thing out of his mouth, he says, I understand you don't get along with Doug Dunn.
Oh, geez.
Why he said that, I have no. He knew we were best friends.
Yeah, you guys were buds. I mean.
And I hung up on him twice. And he said, don't hang up. It's really John Belushi. I thought it was a friend of mine wanting to go to lunch. Because we had this game. If he called and said he was the president of the United States or Stevie Wonder or somebody, I know it was him.
Oh, my gosh.
That's what he used to do. And I thought he was pulling my leg that it's really John Belushi, because the girls would know at the time, and they knew then, not to disturb me while I'm mixing.
Oh,
and I was mixing Robin Ford at the time, of all things.
Wow.
And the third time, he's yelling and screaming, don't hang up. It's really John Belushi. I'm in New York. I need you up here right away. I'm putting a band together. And I said, John, I can't do it. So I hung up later, and Robin Ford gets up out of the couch and turns around and says, who are you talking to? I said, John Belushi. He said, I'll do it. No, you won't. So I made a deal with the other engineer to finish the next 2 songs, and just send them to me on the road, and I'll tell you if I like them or not. And I called John back, and I said, if you can wait a couple of days, I'll be up there.
Oh, my gosh.
So I came on up there. That's when we got started.
What was Saturday Night Live like back then, working on that show?
Well, pretty much as crazy as this kids they did.
Really?
It was just crazy and nuts, but everybody got along, and they worked as a team, and that was, I think, the greatest ever. Was during that time, and maybe that's because I was there. I have no idea, but I try to watch the new episodes, and I can't. It's just a little above my head, I guess. I don't understand some of the comedy that I did back in those days. So
I'm with you. I'm Belushi days all the way, and Chevy Chase. I am.
Think about those guys, Dan Aykroyd, and everybody was on there. Garrett Morris was one.
Garrett Morris.
Guys.
Oh my gosh. He
introduced Newman and those people. This great Gilda Radner.
Holy
like
mackerel. I can't. I just
on and on and on. I mean, you just go forever. They're great.
And when Steve Martin used to appear on there, I and just how they used to.
Kiki, I don't think a lot of people know that Steve Martin originally was a writer for Saturday Night Live.
I didn't know that.
I bet you didn't know that.
I did not.
I do know that. And at the time we opened for him at the Universal Amphitheater, he had the #1 record called King
Tut. How to Get So Funky.
That's pretty funny.
Funky Tut. I mean, those were the best. That was when Saturday Night Live was just
it was what it is.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Rosie Schuster was one of the writers, and her and Aykroyd were just, incredible at writing funny stuff. And Danny, we call him Danny. We know him enough to call him Danny, Dan Aykroyd. He knew how to write for Belushi. And the funny thing about Belushi, he was just like Abbott and Costello, because Yeah, but John didn't have to say anything. He just looked at the camera and everybody would just bellyache.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Just that look he had. There's something else. If he had a line, everybody accepted it. But if he didn't have a line, it didn't matter.
It didn't. When I just think of him in the bee costume, he didn't say anything. He didn't have to. He just
the Buzzy Bees.
Yeah.
That was the original Blues Brothers was the Buzzy Bees.
Oh my God!
And I don't know whether I should tell this on radio or not, but
Do it.
Caught him playing with his stinger. Watch the episode.
Oh my! I will. I definitely will. So, how often do you talk to Dan Aykroyd now?
That's a good question. Not as often as I should, probably. The last time I saw Danny, he called me on the road. He was going out to L.A. to write a new movie. He called me and said, "What are you guys doing?" I said, "I don't know, nothing." He said, "Well, I want to go to a movie. I want to see so-and-so." So he came in and we went to dinner and then went to a movie.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, he's like that, you know.
Well, you know what? You got to pick up the phone.
Friends.
You got to give him a call tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, Kiki.
No, you
do that.
You know,
I need to just call him just to say hello. How you doing, man? Just check in with him.
Yep. Just say hi to Danny.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then, you know, whenever John picked up the line, "Play it, Steve," how did that, like, did you just love that?
Well, I didn't even think about it. But, and he said, the biggest line he said when we did the live thing, "I suggest you go out and buy as many blues albums as you can." Now, you know, it was fun when he said, "Steve Cropper, Donald Duck Dunn," that kind of thing. I mean, it's pretty cool, but I didn't think about it. "Play It, Steve" was just part of the record. When Sam said it on the live session, I didn't think a thing about it. I mixed that record, and I said, you know, when I think back, I didn't pay any more attention to that "Play It, Steve" at the time, didn't give it any more attention or energy than I would have normally. So it is what it is. And it has become famous, and I now can say, you know, I've been the other half of "Play It" for years.
Well, yeah, because now your record company is named "Play It, Steve,"
yep.
right?
So we use it.
So you might as well, you know, use the line.
Why not?
You know,
I think probably Sam might be sorry that he said it, but it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's all put to good use. Now.
Yep.
We've been talking about the guys a lot that you've worked with. What about the amazing women you have worked with?
Oh, my gosh. Well, one of the most amazing was Carla Thomas.
Mm-hmm. I know you had a font.
She's still alive, and she sings her kazoo off. And I think when her first hit record with her dad, she was like 15 or something. She was like 16 or 17 when she had Gee Whiz. And then on and on. Stop and Baby was a big hit, and on and on. Her career has just gone on and on and on. And she's still there. She called me one day and she said, you know, "Steve, I still sing, so use me sometime."
Oh.
She said, "I'll drive up."
So would you?
I was in Nashville. Yeah, she would. I've never used her, but I could have.
Oh, my. That would be amazing.
If I did more recording now, I would. But it's, you know, the Blues Brothers thing. I'm usually gone on the road with the Blues Brothers.
So you're still doing that. You're still doing that now. You're still doing the Blues Brothers now.
Well, the next gig, I think I talked to Louis the other day or email, and the next one is September the 17th in Chicago.
Wow.
The next booked gig. And that's the last time I played with them was a charity gig down in Florida last year. And we got another one coming up this year over here. And they may be gone right now. I don't know. To Europe. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't keep up with them anymore. So
yeah.
as much. But when he calls me over here, boom, I'm there.
Wow. You are a blessed man. But you know what? Even more blessed that Brian Epstein of the Beatles and the Beatles wanted to work with you. You almost worked on the Revolver album. I mean, like, how can to even say that?
I'm glad I didn't, because I probably would put my 2 cents in and it would have changed everything.
You really think so, though? You really
just a better guy than me trying to produce him, and you know, you can't. How are you going to produce George Harrison? He's going to do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And he obviously didn't need a babysitter, but they said that had it not been for George Martin, there would have never been the Beatles. I don't know about that. I just don't know.
Yeah.
But he knew what he had, and they made some great records. There's no question about it. Great songs, great records. And, you know, Paul is the only one that I've never really written with or been in the studio with. I played on John Lennon's rock and roll album.
Gosh.
And I played on Ringo's album. And it's just one of those things, And I played behind George, of course, but I didn't work with Paul at all. Never have. And Paul is the only Beatle that ever looked at me and pointed his finger and said, you and I got to work together one day.
So why?
I've been with him. I know him well, and I sat in on a session. He was mixing Listen to What the Man Said.
Oh, my gosh. I can't.
He was mixing that at Wally Hyder, and I was in the other studio, and I said, Paul is over there, and I said, well, I'm going to go over and say hello, and I did. That's when he was married to Linda, I think.
And that was one of my questions. Do you think it'll ever happen if you ever work with Paul?
I doubt it. I think we're getting too old for it now. I don't know. I did some animal touring. I did 2 tours with the English animals and with John Steele's band and all. And a lot of new members, and just most of those guys are either gone or in rest homes or wherever. Right. And John is still out there playing drums, and I don't know what it is about drummers. They just seem to last longer than other guys. Maybe they're more in shape. I don't know. But
well,
anyway.
You're doing pretty good, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. So we get home one night from a gig, and I set up, and Paul McCartney's on, and so I set up and watched this whole live concert. I said, damn, that guy's really, really good.
Yeah.
I'd never listened to 2 hours of his music before. Just when he does specials, he comes out and does 1 or 2 songs, and I've seen like everybody else. When he did Hey Jude and a few other things and different TV shows and what. But this one, he was doing a concert. Somebody filmed it, and they were showing it over in England. I went, oh my God, that guy's really, really good. I knew he was good. I didn't know he was great good.
Yeah. Well, did you hear his most recent album? I think it was, a couple of years ago, Egypt Station. That's amazing. It's the most recent album from him, and it's so good.
Everything he's ever touched is good.
You too. Just saying.
And I've talked to many people that's been to his concerts. They said, you got to go watch one of his concerts.
Yeah.
And then I got to see one on TV over in England at that. And that told me everything I needed to know right there.
But please tell me, what was it like to work with Ringo, John, and George? I mean...
Well, Ringo's a whole other animal. Every time I see your face... So Richard Perry was going to throw that song off the session because the demo just wasn't that good. And I look at Nicky Hopkins, who's not with us anymore. I said, Nicky, you and I go out and put a groove on this thing. And we did. Next thing you know, Kellner comes and sits down. The next thing you know, Klaus is out there. The next thing you know, Ringo comes and sits down and says, man, that's a groove. Photograph.
Oh, my God.
Every time I see your face, it reminds me of the places we used to go. All I did was just put a rhythm to it. Ding, 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 ding. Nothing that George would have done on his own if he'd had more time, but he wanted to write a song for Ringo's album, and he did. I think it went number 1. And at the time, Ringo did the John Hoyt song, what was that thing, Cocaine, or one of those things, and, And I played on, I played on a lot of songs on the album, but another one I played on, You're 16.
Oh, my God, You're Beautiful in Your Mind.
Yeah.
Holy macaroni. Steve, literally, what have you not done?
I have no idea.
It's true.
Do whatever it calls for.
You don't know because it's amazing. Now, let's talk about Rod Stewart for a second. So he said, because you worked on his album, Footloose and Fancy Free, he said you sparked the hit Tonight's the Night, but I don't see you credited for that anywhere.
No, I'm not credited with it at all, but he did make a statement in an interview that there was only 2 people in the room when that song was written. And I was really upset. I went to his manager, Billy Gaff. I went to Tom Dowd, who produced it, and I said, I didn't get credit on this. But Rod did give me credit for Stone Cold Sober.
Oh, well, there you go.
And I brought him the song Too Much Noise. It's the same song. Rod has a thing about he wants to do his own lyrics his own way. Mm-hmm. And so Tom Dowd told me, he said, that's the way the British artists work. If they write the lyrics, then they claim the whole song. I'm going, wait a minute. Music is 50-50. The music is one thing, the lyrics are another. If you write all of it, you don't get more for writing the lyrics. You just get part of the song if you co-wrote it.
So how did that song even come about then?
Tonight's the Night. I was just playing some blues percussion, and I played on the album on the cut in the studio, and he went home and rewrote the lyrics, and it is what it is.
Oh, okay. So it was kind of...
So I helped write Rosie, Ball Trap, and Tonight's the Night, and Stone Cold Sober. So.
Wow. Wow.
It is what it is.
And David Foster, he also worked on that album. Have you ever worked with him after that?
No, but I know him.
Oh, yeah. We all know him.
He's out overdubbing on something. You're going to love this story. This is pretty simple. So I punched the engineer. David's out there, and he's playing his kazoo off. And I punched the engineer, and I said, Robert Affair, and I said, one of these days, we will not be able to get him on the phone.
Did you really?
How true was that?
Yeah, no. Oh, my gosh. We will not be able to get him. Nope, you can't get him on the phone. Can't get him anywhere. Now, Steve, you are recognized as one of the world's best guitarists. Now, another guitarist that is also considered to be one of the world's best guitarists is the late and great Eddie Van Halen. Did you ever get to work with him?
Not really, but we did a video together on the Bo Cephas video years ago with Hank Jr.
Wow.
So they did that little thing they do, and I was in the booth with a cowboy hat getting cowboy boots shine, sitting there with another guy.
Oh, jeez. Wow. So you kind of worked.
Hank sent us all a copy of the video and all that. And so that's as close as I ever came to Eddie Van Halen.
Wow. Now, Peter Frampton, he's another amazing guitar player, and you worked on his
I did a tour with Peter one time.
Right.
Not too long ago.
Guitar Circus.
And Duck and I think played on his You Don't Know Like I Know, which he covered a Sam and Dave version.
Oh, my gosh.
And we did that out in L.A. years ago when Frampton was Frampton. He was a young guy then.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. He's still amazing. I mean, we saw him.
He just could play and sing and do his thing, and it's great. And a guy that I really didn't know how good he was, I met him 40 years ago, but I didn't know who he was, really, is Dave Mason. He's incredible, has a great voice, and plays like nobody's business. I mean, he's really good. He's played on a lot of hit albums and sessions and all. And he was he played acoustic guitar, he told me, on Jimi Hendrix All Around the Watchtower.
Oh, my God.
I went, when you were on that? He said, yeah.
Oof.
So, that's pretty cool.
That is so cool. Now, when you did,
I got to work with Matt Guitar Murphy with the Blues Brothers, and he played on a lot of hits I didn't know he played on too.
That's great. And it's true. You don't realize how I always say it's like a big circle with all of you guys. You all have worked together.
Well, disc jockeys are inclined to read the credits more than musicians are. I never was an album collector.
Really?
I'd hear something on the radio, great, it's a good song, and that's super. But I don't look at who actually wrote it, who published it, and who played on the session. Sometimes I do. If I'm told, I will, but I don't usually do it myself. So.
Now, I know that you are a lover of radio. You once said that the biggest thrill for you is to hear one of your songs on the radio because
I think that's the biggest thrill for everybody. And I tell this when I do a lecture or something. I said, if you're a songwriter or musician, the biggest thrill you'll ever have in your life is the first time you hear something you did or connected to on the radio. I said, you better pull your car over if you don't, you'll wreck it. And it's true. I mean, I still to this day get excited when I hear something I did. And I got to hear something recently, it had to be about 5 or 6 weeks ago. Etta James covered Champagne and Wine. I never even knew she had ever covered. And I hear it on the radio on Blues Junction. I'm going, oh, my goodness.
Wow. Yeah,
how cool is that?
The voice on her, my gosh.
She's something else.
Holy moly. And also, when you worked with Eddie Floyd, Knock on Wood, that had a lot of life to that song.
Right.
Hit number 1, it went gold. David Bowie released a live version of it in 1974, and then Amy Stewart turned it into a number 1 disco hit. Did you and Eddie ever talk and say, what is happening with this song?
Well, not really, but somebody gave us a tape one time, gave us both a tape at a concert. There was 27 different versions. Oh. I never did know that Ella Fitzgerald cut it. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
There you go.
Holy moly. I got to go listen to that now.
Yeah. I don't know why she did it. And the first guy that did, he was in a movie, John Bubbles. And he tapped, I think I better knock, pop, pop, and tapped his cane on the piano on wood. I didn't know that either until later. I had no idea. I think I better knock, tap, 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 tap on wood.
Oh, yeah.
I'm singing the melody of the original record. I mean, the Eddie Floyd version. But I don't think that's where Eddie got it from either. He would have told me that.
Now, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, that's also had a lot of life to it. Sammy Hagar covered it, and Michael Bolton, Otis's widow Zelma, she said that's her favorite version of Sitting on the Dock.
Well, the neat thing about that record is Columbia called me and said, we've got a version of your song, but we won't put it out until you okay it. So they sent me that version. I said, man, put it out. That is a smash.
Yeah.
And it was.
Did you work with either Sammy or Michael on their versions?
No, unfortunately. And that was Neil Sean played the solo on Michael Bolton's Dock of the Bay.
Did he really?
Great solo. And I always play the bridge changes on the solo, and not that I even come close to playing like Neil, but he played on the verse changes. And I don't know, I've never tried playing on the verse changes. I couldn't do it if I wanted to.
Wow.
So, I have to coax the band or tell them, when I say coax them, I coach them to tell them, play the bridge changes. And I'll say the bridge, guys, one more time.
So did you ever play alongside Neil?
No. Not that I remember.
Now that would be a good combo.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That would be fun.
Peter I have, Neil I have not. Now, Neil played with Dave Mason one time, and I heard some stuff that he did. I thought it was great.
He's amazing.
And so Dave did too, but, Dave Mason really doesn't need any competition.
Yeah.
So he can play it on his own. Let him do what he does.
Now, I have to tell you, though, Steve, my favorite cover of Sitting on the Dock of the Bay is when you did it with Justin Timberlake at the White House for the Obama family. Please tell us what that was like.
Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. And the funny thing about Justin, we're doing a Blues Awards thing in Memphis. And he turns around to me, and I'm standing backstage, and I'm going, man, I can't stand it anymore. I got to get out there and play with these people. So I grabbed my guitar still out there, and I just walked out and grabbed my guitar. And here comes Justin. He says, do you remember that song we did at the White House? And I go, yeah, I think I might remember that one.
Oh, my gosh.
Bless his heart. He sang the kazoo out of that song. Oh, wow, did he sing that song. I think he did a better version in Memphis than he did at Washington, D.C.
Really? I mean, because the White House version, I'm sitting there saying, wow. I mean, Justin's great anyway. And then with you, holy macaroni.
Oh, and Booker. The neat thing, I mean, Justin has got more talent than 10 people. But anyway, we did it with Tom Jones at the Royal Albert Hall.
Yep.
And he came backstage to me earlier at Soundcheck. He said, I just want you and me to do this. Well, Booker was on the show, too, and he volunteered to come out. And Tom was very happy to see him. And he did a great version. And I had some guys down in Florida last week. They said, anything you want to hear? And I said, yeah, pull up Tom Jones's version of Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. And the guys are going, did you play on that? I said, no, but I sure do like it.
Wow. And oh my God, the things you've been able to do. Now, one person that you have always said you wanted to work with so badly was the Queen herself, Tina Turner.
Right.
And you were inducted into the Memphis Music Hall of Fame with her. What would it look like if Steve Cropper worked with Tina Turner? What would you do?
I have no idea. I really don't. But a good buddy of mine, Tony Joe White, worked with her. He did the record Steamy Windows with her. And the question to me was, is there anybody that you haven't produced that you'd like to have produced at one time? I said, yeah, Tina Turner. The definitive answer. And we worked with Aretha. More than once I worked with Aretha. I worked with her back when I was just in my young 20s at a DJ convention one time. And then we got to work with her again later for some other stuff. And then later again in the Blues Brothers movie, she was in there. So it was fun recording behind Aretha. So I have no idea what Tina was at Cherokee when I was in doing I forget who I was doing at the time, but she was up front in Studio A. And I remember the movie she was working on was a soundtrack for Thunderball.
Oh, wow.
We Don't Need Another Hero and those songs, but I never did see her. I mean, I just knew she was in there. You don't just go over and disturb anybody. You could, but anyway, I didn't do that. And
do you wish you could have, though? Do you wish you did it?
Maybe. I've seen her in concert 3 times.
Oh.
Blew me away every time I saw her.
Yeah.
I was right there the whole time. So, man, can that girl sing and dance? She's got them both going.
Yeah, I mean...
And she's better than anybody on the stage, I'll guarantee you that. Not that she overshadows them. She pays homage to every one of them.
Yeah.
And she always carried some good dancers with her, good singers and good dancers. It was like Aretha. She had good dancers, but she had great singers behind her. You know, she always knew, and she played piano, and she knew. So I'm sure that Tina, I never did see Tina play anything, but I'm sure that, you know, being Mary Dyke, and he was a keyboard player anyway, that she knew a lot about music and all. You can just naturally hear it in her voice that she knows.
Yeah, you could tell she was very...
So, you know, I mean, now it's too late. She's retired, and I hadn't retired yet. I'm about to get tired.
Like, how are you ever going to retire? You have a #1 blues album, Fire It Up. I mean, listen, one of my favorites...
They said, when are you going to retire? And I said, when they stop wheeling me up to a microphone, I guess.
I mean, why stop? You know, I mean...
I don't know. If I could play like I used to, I probably would do more, but I can't. My brain tells my fingers what to do, and they just don't do it anymore. So I'm not making excuses, but my engineer knows. He knows I can't play like I used to. I just can't do it.
Steve, you play the dots.
I do what I do. Maybe that's better. The guy somewhere is taking care of me, making sure I play the right stuff at the right time, I guess. I don't know.
Well, what was the inspiration for this album that you did, Fire It Up?
Well, you know, the thing is, we were in lockdown. You know that. So this band was never saw each other. I talked to Roger several times on the phone. She lives here, and the drummer, and I never talked to him. I didn't go over to John Tibbins' house, but I did. We were doing some writing years ago. We used to write once or twice a week, once every Tuesday at least, and maybe another day if we could work it in. And so we had stockpiled about 15 tracks that we didn't have any artists for. And the artist that we were writing some of these songs for, he said, I'm not going to sing them. You know, he played on a couple of them. He said, I'm not going to finish all these tracks, and I'm definitely not going to sing them. I said, okay. I had forgotten about them. And John had called me and said, do you mind if I finish some of these up and maybe get some guys to write some lyrics? And I said, fine with me. Go for it. I'd completely forgotten about these songs. And he brings them forward. He had access because there's a studio in his house.
Yeah.
I don't. But I'm about 5 minutes from the studio. I'm at RCA Studio C now. And we had a studio just down the alleyway for about 20-some-odd years. And so my engineer called me, and he said, I found us a place. They really want us over at RCA. I said, really? He said, yeah, and we don't have to call anybody to move our equipment. All we can do is just carry it down the alleyway and set it up. I said, okay.
Okay.
Go for it. So that's where we're at. I have an office there. We have a studio there. And the studio was put together originally by Chet Atkins.
Oh, my God.
Who I also met several times. Pretty cool guy.
Holy moly. All right, Steve. Who have you not met that you wanted to, besides working with Tina? Who else?
Nobody that I can think of. You know, I've met and know 4 or 5 presidents and all their people behind them and all that stuff. So
yeah,
it's just what it is.
Now, do you have a new book coming out as well?
Well, I don't know when it'll come out. We have to have everything turned in by the end of July.
Oh, okay. So you got to get crack-a-lackin'.
I got to get going. So we do a Zoom call every Friday at 11 o'clock. This particular Friday, we're not doing one. I think that's great.
You have a break.
And so the guy writing it, Mike Reed, he says that he's got enough. He wants to digest some of it before we do another Zoom call. Okay.
All right.
We've done one every week for the past 2 or 3 months.
Wow.
So that's a lot of Zoom time.
Yep. And it's a lot of information, too. Are you enjoying the process?
Oh, yeah. It's fun. They have to rattle my brain just like you're doing, and a lot of things I don't think of. And when you ask me a question, then I go, wow, I never even thought about that.
Well, one thing you do know is happening this year. Your 80th birthday is coming up in October, and I was told that there is a big old party, and there's going to be a lot of really important people there. So can you let us know a couple of people that'll be on that guest list for your big 80?
I have no idea. I know some letters that went out, but I don't know if any of them have been returned yet, so I have no idea. The big party of the artists coming in will be September the 7th at the Ryman.
Nice.
And the reason it's at the Ryman a little early is because that was the only date they had available.
Yeah. Well, things are getting booked up now. Everything's open.
A couple of years ago, I told the band that I normally work with for my stuff is Six Wire. Great
Yep.
band.
Yep.
I've done a lot of charity stuff with them and some songwriter stuff and shows here in town locally. And they're great. They know all of my stuff, and that's good. I've done several shows for them or with them. And they asked me a couple of years ago, we want to celebrate your 80th. And I said, okay, that was so far away. Okay, it's going to be great.
Nice.
And then they called me and said, well, good news and bad news. We got the Ryman, but the only date available is September 7th. I said, okay, that's fine, as long as we celebrate it. And we had done something at the Ryman several years ago, and I called a jukebox on stage, and I had about 12 artists come in, and they were only allowed to do one hit and one of their choice. You know, I don't care about your new music. The audience doesn't care about your new music. I want them to come in to hear you do your hit or hits.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're absolutely
Everybody gets two, and if you only got one, that's fine. If you got more than that, do two songs. That's all you're going to get.
That's it. And that's it. That's what Steve says.
And the Ryman, the guys, they heard hit after hit after hit after hit. I mean, it was amazing what we did.
Pretty amazing.
So
now, Steve, as you look back at everything you've done and all of the artists you have worked with, what has been the greatest thrill for you on this amazing journey?
No idea.
There's got to be one thing.
The best time I had was working at Stax, period, with Booker T and the MGs, with that rhythm section doing sessions.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what was a hit and what wasn't. We just cut whatever we cut that day. If it was 3 songs, 2 songs, or 1 song, whatever, it didn't matter. It all got every song that was brought in was given the same energy by the same guys all the time. Then they would decide what they were going to release as a single. Some of them made it, some of them didn't, so it didn't matter.
Mm-hmm. And you've always said, Steve, it's all about the music. It's all about the music.
Yeah. If the music can get people going, then that's what it's all about. And I have made this comment, I'll make it to you. If you're not dancing 2 bars to listen to this album, you're already dead.
Well, you had me dancing at 1, so.
Well, good. And if you're sitting, your butt will be wiggling.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. It's a great, everybody go get fired up,
it's
seriously.
It's a feel-good album, fired up. We're going to fire it up. And I said this last year, I said, we're going to fire it up in 2021. Well, I guess we are.
Yep, absolutely. Now, Steve, you're woven into the most important music genres of our time: rock and roll, soul, blues, disco, country, R&B. You've touched it all. And from your friends Otis Redding to Rod Stewart to Aretha Franklin to John Lennon, you've been on every end of the musical globe. Almost 8 decades later, you're still writing, you're still singing, you're still having fun, talking about it all. And I just want to say blessings to you and your wife, Angel. And whether, Steve, you're the Colonel, your Crop, your Legend, no matter what, keep playing it, Steve. And thank you so much for everything you have given to all of us.
Keep playing the good music.